Tonight on The Wrap, Andy Burnham prepares to tour the country to ask people how the government can improve their lives. The Prime Minister has laid out his desire to undo decades of decline on the high street, but are Labour's tax hikes partly to blame? One of the world's most wanted alleged organised crime boss, Daniel Kinahan, is charged and remanded in custody in Dublin after being extradited from Dubai. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected the Gaza plan from President Trump's Board of Peace, saying his forces won't withdraw until Hamas disarms. As the UK braces for the fifth heatwave of the summer, we report on a potential crisis in global food supplies. And in sport, Arsenal presented their new £75 million signing, Bruno Guimaraes, at the Emirates. Well, we'll be discussing the day's biggest stories with Guardian columnist Zoe Williams and the Times columnist Cindy Yu. Plus, we'll take a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. That's coming up in half an hour. Well, good evening. Welcome to you and, of course, to Zoe and Cindy. Our first big story is Andy Burnham heading off on tour this summer, going on what's being called a summer roadshow this week. Downing Street saying the Prime Minister is going to tour the country to talk to people about their concerns over the cost of living. Zoe and Cindy, be really interested to hear your thoughts on this. Cindy, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think there are two reasons why a tour like this is good. First of all, he's a new Prime Minister and one that hasn't been in national politics for ages, so it gives people, it shows people who he is. The second reason is because he's targeting cost of living and consumers particularly, and I think that will also give him a good impression amongst the voters.
Yeah, and also, Zoe, he's not wasting time, is he? I mean, Parliament's in recess, most of the politicians are on holiday. He's actually doing the work now, preparing for Westminster to reassemble, as it were.
I mean, that's a very kind reading. I think you're both being very kind, and I think it's good to be kind to a new Prime Minister, but essentially, you could look at the numbers and see what people's problems are, right?
Read the papers.
Everybody knows that. Read the papers, look at the numbers. Everybody's worried about the cost of living, everybody's worried about the price of food, everybody's worried about the price of fuel, everybody's worried about crumbling public services. Everybody knows what everybody else is worried about. So I think it's a waste of time.
OK, a waste of time. A good thing, says Cindy. Well, the revival of the high street is actually one of the things that Andy Burnham wants to talk about. It's one of his priorities. But if that is going to be achieved, he's going to have to battle long-term shopping trends. We all shop so differently now. And also some of the economic policies of his predecessor. Our correspondent, Charlotte Leeming, has this report from Wakefield.
Back in the 1980s, Wakefield's High Street was booming, with the opening of the Riding's shopping centre, the Jewel in the Crown. Described as the next Harrods, people flocked here to spend their money. But times have changed. Many shops have now shut or moved out of town. The precinct's been slated for future closure and possible demolition for redevelopment. But new Prime Minister Andy Burnham says he wants to bring back hope to the high street and tackle the cost of living. Going on tour to meet people and hear their problems. So are they as hopeful as he is?
It's a real struggle. I mean, me and my wife work, and we work 40 hours a week, and you're still struggling to pay your bills then. So, yeah, I think people that are on minimum wage and things are really finding it really difficult.
Put more things on to try and, revamp this area a bit and, you put more focus on some of the historic buildings, because some area of Wakefield are really nice. We just kind of get drowned out by a lot of the other not-so-nice buildings.
They're on about pulling Ridings down. There's all them shops in there. Where are they going to go? Pulling the flats down at the back of it. No, it's not good enough, is it?
Sofa store manager Mark Watson says high streets up and down the country desperately need support to survive, particularly with the rise in business costs and a reduction in footfall.
Like I say, the high street isn't dead. It just needs sort of rejuvenating, and obviously they're talking about redeveloping the Ridings, perhaps pulling it down. That isn't the answer. For us, we know some of the larger retailers are coming out of the Ridings, which will leave obviously some of your smaller independents sort of in limbo without the attraction of the bigger units to pull people in here. So what's going to happen?
Andy Burnham has said it's his mission to help ease the financial pressure on people. He's already set out measures to cap bus fares and to reduce the cost of energy. But the Conservatives are asking him to explain in detail how he actually plans to fund all of these initiatives.
Lovely to meet you. Nice to meet you.
The PM's heading out for community conversations, but it's his actions, not words, he's going to be judged on. Charlotte Leeming, Sky News, Wakefield.
Let's bring in our political correspondent, Alex Rogers, who's following this story for us this evening. And Alex, where's he heading?
Well, he's just going on a national tour across Britain, Sarah-Jane, highlighting that he's understanding of people's concerns around the cost of living. He's in listening mode, we're told, and he wants to give people some breathing room on the cost of living. And as we were just hearing, that's how he kick-started his premiership, with a series of policy announcements, the £2 cap on bus fares, cutting VAT off electricity bills, and also that 20% cut in business rates for pubs and other venues. And he's been giving a limited number of interviews, actually, it has to be said, since he's been Prime Minister. But in the ones that he has given, this has been the key focus for him, the cost of living. He's spoken about how he's aware that families can't plan holidays, they can't plan days out. He's also spoken about outrageously high rail fares, so that might be something to watch. And the Chancellor, John Healey, also saying recently that he was watching closely at possible price gouging at petrol stations, so that might give a flavour of what might be to come. Now, in terms of the reaction to this, opposition parties, while welcoming of the focus on the cost of living, are critical about Andy Burnham's approach to this. The Lib Dems are calling it a vanity tour. The Greens say he's just tinkering at the edges, and the Conservatives say that existing Labour policies are causing damage to the economy, such as the increase in national insurance contributions for employers. So I think with this tour, it's another signal from Andy Burnham that the cost of living is at the top of his list, but he will continue to face questions about how he plans to fund all of this.
Alex, thank you very much. And Sarah, I want to talk to you about this because you're a little bit sceptical, but, you know, going back to Cindy and I perhaps being a little bit kinder, what else would Andy Burnham be doing in this month of August when really he can't actually do anything properly until sort of everybody comes back to Westminster? He's actually getting out there, shaking hands, talking to people, putting in the FaceTime. He's actually making use of otherwise what would be just sort of a bit of a rest period for politicians.
I'm really into how committed you both are to being nice to this guy. I do think that's a valuable civic duty. But the truth is, there's a lot he could be doing in the time before Parliament. Parliament needs to be sitting if he wants to pass legislation. But, you know, if he wants to plan the closer relationship with the EU within the manifesto red lines, that is going to take some planning. If he wants to he's going to have a lot to deal with the droughts. It's going to have a lot to deal with the farmers. There's going to be a lot to deal with if the Straits of Hormuz don't open. There's a lot to deal with in that entire Middle East conflict. There's a lot to deal with in the orientation towards Russia, Ukraine. There's a lot to deal with which you can use this downtime for. Whereas, I mean, I'm not being cynical, but going around the country saying to people, how are things going? And they say, everything's going quite badly because everything's too expensive, leads you down the path of a bunch of retail politics. So you're like, well, you can have this much off this bill, and you can have this much off this bill. And then sooner or later, somebody says, that hasn't actually helped that much, or it's too broad brush because you've given the VAT off everybody's fuel bills, and that actually works out better for the higher earner than the lower earner, etc., etc., etc. It's actually much better when you know what the pressures are to do the thinking about how to take those pressures off before the hurly-burly of Parliament has started.
Cindy, Alex there said that some of the criticism in Westminster is this is essentially a vanity project. It's Andy Burnham. You know, let's face it, not everybody knows that much about Andy Burnham. We do because of the world we work in. However, he's putting FaceTime, he's doing that. Is it a bit of a vanity project? Should he be in Westminster, as Zoe said, going through that big, long list of things ready to go when everybody comes back to Westminster?
I think probably is a vanity project, but politics is about perception, right? It's important to have, if what we mean by vanity project is what we mean by communication, that's very important to have. And actually going back to the Prime Minister that has just left office, Keir Starmer, he was so good at dealing with all of these big issues that Zoe you're mentioning, but he was doing them a lot in the background. And actually he wasn't very good at putting his case forward. He wasn't very good at being charismatic with the voters or with his own party. And I think Andy Burnham doing this right now in the role that he has is to set a vision, right? A set a positive vision and to lead, you know, his cabinet to say, the Secretaries of State can deal with all these separate, different nitty-gritty issues until Parliament comes back. But for now, I'm going to be the person setting out this perception that things are going to get better. And I think that is actually really important. We shouldn't discount that soft purpose of politics. And I've never been accused of being too kind to Andy Burnham, so I'm also catching myself by surprise. But I think this particular tool, I think, does have small p political benefits.
I mean, two things on that. Keir wasn't any good at the big stuff either. Keir would have a big idea for winter fuel payment and it would have U-turned before it got in front of Parliament. Or, anything he had a big idea on was immediately rescinded because he hadn't thought it through. So you look at people who look quite boring and you think they're going to be good at thinking, and they're not necessarily good at thinking. I don't know. I mean, I've got a feeling that Andy Burnham is good, I think he probably is good at the big picture stuff. And I think he's much more decisive than Keir, and I think his government will be better than Keir's. But I think I don't think it is really communicative because people can smell a rat. Everybody,
Is it important for him to be seen in some areas, though? Because since he became Prime Minister, he's talked a lot about the North, a lot about Manchester.
Yeah.
Obviously, Westminster is in London. And there are other parts of the country that would like a bit of attention from the Prime Minister. I'm thinking of south of London. I'm thinking of your rural areas, your Cornwalls, where, he comes in and he talks about bringing down bus fares. A lot of people around the country be like, well, it'd be lovely if we had a bus route.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, that's why I asked Alex, where's he going? Nationwide, that's very broad. That's not very specific. I'd love to see his bus route. Because I think that will be important.
And I think as well, as soon as he came in, he said, 30 years of neoliberalism have given the North a bad deal. He was immediately pitting one bit of the country against another in a way that I thought was actually quite problematic. Because even when people talk about London, the bits they mean as the kind of metropolitan elite are like 2 postcodes.
It's like a square mile.
It's like a square mile. And most of London is suffering exactly the same kind of pressures as most of Manchester. And then Cornwall, as you say, is suffering a whole different set of pressures, which nevertheless relate back to energy, fuel, food, public services. It's like...
Cost of fuel on that bus to get all the way down to Cornwall from Manchester. I mean, there you go. That's a talking point in itself, isn't it?
Well, exactly. And it was kind of typical of the bus fares that he announced, the cap. It was very typical of that kind of retail politics thing where you give somebody a thing that they want, but it's not actually connected to any wider thought. It's not connected to any wider political concept.
I don't know if it has to be connected, though, because the average voter isn't connected to political concepts and not ideological.
It might be if the Prime Minister comes to town.
Well, the thing is,
what they want is just to have, things in their bill being lower in cost, right? And so if that, whatever political ideology that comes from, I don't think they care.
I just don't agree, because the point is, nothing you can do as a government with, retail offers is ever really enough. You have to be able to say why you're doing it and which direction you're headed in. So you could say to everybody, you could do a helicopter money thing and say, I'm going to give everybody 50 quid, and everybody would go, wow, that's great. But, the minute the 50 quid runs out, it kind of vanishes in a puff of smoke. People need to know that it's connected to a project.
OK, all right. Zoe and Cindy, thank you for the moment. Let's just bring you an update on a story that we've been following throughout the course of this evening. You may well have seen it earlier here on Sky News. The alleged gang boss, Daniel Kinahan, back in Ireland tonight, having been extradited from Dubai. Tonight, the 49-year-old appeared before Dublin's Special Criminal Court and was remanded in custody. The former boxing promoter, who is from Dublin, has been charged with directing an organised crime group. Now, our Ireland correspondent, Stephen Murphy, is across this story and has the latest for you.
Touchdown for Ireland's most wanted man. A government jet brings the alleged crime boss, Daniel Kinahan, back to Dublin after his battle against extradition from Dubai failed. It's his first visit home for a decade. In an intense security operation, the 49-year-old was taken to the non-jury Special Criminal Court. In a brief hearing, he was charged with directing the activities of an organised crime group. Kinahan's return being hailed as a significant day for Irish law enforcement.
I want to pay very strong tribute to An Garda Síochána, to the Garda Commissioner, in terms of the Gardaí's success in tackling organised crime in a very effective way. And also I pay tribute to the authorities in the United Arab Emirates for the strong cooperation with Ireland over recent years.
A boxing weigh-in at a Dublin hotel 10 years ago changed everything. A hit squad, some disguised as armed police, attacked the event with assault rifles, hunting for Daniel Kinahan. He escaped, but one of his associates, David Byrne, was shot dead.
It was the worst criminal outrage probably in criminal history in Ireland. People going around with Kalashnikovs trying to kill rival gang members in the middle of the day and trying to evade justice. That was never seen at that level before.
The hotel attack accelerated a feud with the rival Hutch gang, which left 18 people dead and paralysed parts of inner-city Dublin with fear.
It's very much like out of a horror movie, because it was frightening. There was armed guards on every street corner searching cars, and it was all about who was going to be shot next.
In the aftermath, Kinahan and some of his associates fled abroad, settling in Dubai. Irish police allege that while there, Kinahan continued to direct organised crime. 4 years ago, US authorities travelled to Dublin to offer a $5 million bounty on top Kinahans, including Daniel. They described the gang as one of the most dangerous in the world. Behind the scenes, there was intense work by Irish police and politicians securing a new extradition deal with the UAE. Kinahan's days in the Gulf were now numbered. Daniel Kinahan has now been remanded in custody, thought to be at Ireland's only maximum security prison in Portlaoise. He knows his legal battle will be tough. "I think we know I won't get bail, but thanks for explaining," he told the court.
Well, Stephen joins us now live from Dublin with the latest. So, Stephen, what happens next?
Well, Daniel Kinahan is effectively starting his first night behind bars as a remand inmate at Ireland's only maximum security prison this evening. And I can tell you, this is really gripping Ireland. I mean, Daniel Kinahan effectively is very much a household name here and has been for the past decade or so. There were many in the law enforcement community here in Ireland that thought that this day might never come. It has taken years of intensive work and intensive diplomatic work, really working diplomatic channels in the Middle East, in America, in the UK, with partners right across Europe and further afield to effect this extradition process. The extradition treaty between Ireland and the UAE was only signed 2 years ago. From that moment on, most people felt that Daniel Kinahan's time, his refuge in the UAE, in Dubai, was probably coming to a home, and that culminated in the flight touching down at Casement Aerodrome in Dublin today. When Daniel Kinahan entered the courtroom here behind me earlier today, I've never seen so many journalists utterly transfixed by the appearance of a suspect in the dock. Nobody had seen Daniel Kinahan in the flesh for a decade. He hasn't been here in Ireland, as far as anybody knows, since attending the funeral of his associate David Byrne, who was murdered in that attack that was aimed at Daniel Kinahan at that boxing weigh-in. That changed the landscape of law enforcement here in Ireland utterly. A bloody feud ensued, 18 people killed to date. Daniel Kinahan went to Spain, then on to Dubai. He's been living there openly for a decade with his wife and 5 children until this extradition process was started after the international arrest warrant was issued. Now, he entered that room. He was fairly diminutive in stature, dressed casually in a black hoodie, swigging from a bottle of water. He was unfailingly deferential and polite toward the 3 judges that can prize the special criminal court here. He repeatedly called them Your Honour. He stood every time they were speaking in court. And as you heard in the report there, as he was being taken away this evening, he made that comment that raised a chuckle or two in the courtroom, I think, a wry comment to the effect that he knew he was never going to get bail in this case. And I think that hints at the severity of the challenge of the legal case that he now has ahead of him. He's remanded effectively for the rest of the summer recess. He won't appear again in court until October.
Stephen, thank you. Stephen Murphy there with the latest on that story from Dublin. Well, just over a week ago, President Trump hailed an apparent breakthrough in the move towards a long-term settlement to rebuild Gaza, involving a commitment from Hamas to disarm. Those hopes are now in tatters after Israel's Prime Minister rejected the US President's 15-point plan for Gaza, stating that no military withdrawal will occur until Hamas is genuinely disarmed. Benjamin Netanyahu has declared Israel will stand its ground on this issue, even against its closest friends.
עכשיו אנחנו מדברים עם האמריקנים על הנושא הזה. Now we are talking with the Americans about this issue. They have ideas, some of which are acceptable to us and some are not. We know how to stand up to these things. We have proven it in the past, and we are proving it today as well.
Well, our correspondent Tom Cheshire has more on this development from Jerusalem.
10 days ago, we had this announcement from the US-led Board of Peace, hailing it as a historic breakthrough. We hadn't heard from Israel until that time. And then the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, today rejecting it in the strongest possible terms, talking about unacceptable things and acceptable things. The big sticking point, the one that he talked straight away about, was the disarmament of Hamas. Now, again, this shows some of the messiness in this. In that original document 10 days ago, that was billed as a phased withdrawal. So Hamas would disarm gradually and Israel would withdraw gradually from Gaza. They then put a post out on X claiming to correct inaccuracies, saying actually what would happen is that Hamas would fully disarm before Israel went back from the yellow line. That is the line that they control in Gaza. Netanyahu today going back and rejecting the whole plan in its entirety on that basis. And it's also worth bearing in mind that, you know, it is a ceasefire, but Israel has continued to control much of Gaza, continues to carry out airstrikes. More than 1,250 people have been killed since that ceasefire came into effect. The other part of this, which is sort of alluded to but not mentioned, when he's talking about acceptable things and unacceptable things, one of the other parts of the peace process, it's not sort of specifically spelled out, but it's understood, the meaning of it, is that part of this is a framework to Palestinian statehood, Palestinian self-determination. Netanyahu was very, very clear today. He said, while I'm Prime Minister, there will be no Palestinian statehood in Gaza or in the West Bank. When I'm Prime Minister is a really important part of that as well, because obviously elections are coming up here in Israel in October. He's under pressure not really to give any ground there. And I think that's why this statement has been so strong. We know there's lots happening behind the scenes. We know the personal relationship between Netanyahu and President Trump is really, really important. But as you were mentioning today, he was very clear saying, I don't mind going against my friends on this. This is position. We'll not be giving an inch on this.
You mentioned the forthcoming elections, and I wonder if there's been any response yet from the others who would like to take the place of Benjamin Netanyahu.
We've heard from his supporters who have sort of, especially on the far right of the political spectrum, who have absolutely endorsed that position. And it's, you know, Gaza in itself is really a really tricky issue. There's been 2 years of fighting, of course, after the October 7th attack. So it is such a live and contentious issue, and one that pretty much every leader wants to look strong on. The other part of this, of course, is Hamas. So they have agreed to this roadmap. That was part of why they called it a historic breakthrough on the US side. They say they are still committed to it, and they want the US to press Israel on this. And again, that question of statehood. I mean, the terms of this deal is that Hamas fully disarms, fully gives up control. It is no longer an entity in Gaza. Without having statehood for Palestine on the table, will they do it? This really takes it all the way back to square one.
Tom Cheshire speaking to my colleague Matt Barbette a little earlier this evening. Zoe, here we are again, same old sticking points.
Well, up to a point. I mean, the thing is, Netanyahu has got an interest in keeping this war going forever. It's both an electoral interest, it's a financial interest, and it's a personal interest. You know, it's just before the October the 7th accounts, Netanyahu was on the point of being charged with, you know, he was on the point of going to court for his own actions, and the very fact that that's been completely torpedoed is testament to how much it's benefiting him personally for this war to carry on indefinitely. Now, the good thing about Donald Trump from that point of view is you can spin a war indefinitely with Donald Trump because he can't remember from one day to the next where you are with it. I mean, if you look at how many times he's declared peace in Iran, only to wake up the next morning and say that he's going to bomb the place to smithereens, or the war, you know, we're still at war with them, they're still at war with them. So he's managed to keep a fragile bond going with the US for a large number of months, because Trump doesn't know anything from sherbet, and Netanyahu's playing a smarter game. Where the real thing is, does the Israeli electorate really want to be at war forever? Because it only benefits Netanyahu. It doesn't benefit Israel. It doesn't benefit the Middle East. It doesn't benefit the future.
Well, this does come at a crucial point in an election cycle, doesn't it, for Benjamin Netanyahu, as Zoe was pointing out?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, October is not that long away in electoral terms, and as Zoe says, that actually before October 7th, Benjamin Netanyahu was not only in legal hot water, but in electoral hot water as well. Actually, we saw those protests from much more moderate Israelis against him before the attacks, and there was that rally around the flag effect, very understandably. And I think the question of, how many years since that attack has it been now that people will still give him that benefit of the doubt, I think is a really good question. But at the same time, you can see that there are just about enough people in the right places in the country who are supportive of his approach. There are people who are far more extremist than Netanyahu when it comes to what to do with, for example, the West Bank. We have seen so much kind of increased settlements happening in there as the world's attention is on Gaza and now on Iran that are happening. And so there will always be people who want him to go further. And then there will always be people who can be swayed to say Israel is under existential risk if we don't go for this maximalist approach.
What does Trump do now? Because Benjamin Netanyahu is publicly saying we're not afraid to go against our friends. Obviously, that means the United States. And in a statement yesterday, he said he was confronting a wave of rumours about Israeli weakness and Israeli withdrawals on all fronts and criticised US pressure to end wars in Gaza, Lebanon and Iran without Israel's buy-in.
I mean, the thing is with Trump is that he immediately goes nuclear. I don't mean that literally, and nobody get ready for a four-minute warning, but he immediately kind of hits 100 on his threats and ruminations if anybody crosses him. But he couldn't do that with Israel. He couldn't suddenly say, oh, well, the US and Israel are no longer important allies. Because everything is so coded. The Republican Party, the Democratic Party, all of his donors, all of his allies, everybody is so coded supportive of Israel. He's in too deep. So I would think he's going to get to a point where it's too costly for him personally to carry on going going head-to-head with Netanyahu. And the payoff isn't that great, He was in love with this idea of himself 6 months ago as the kind of bringer of peace, and he kept saying he'd solved 8 wars, and everybody kept going, which 8 wars?
Name them.
Yeah.
He could barely list them.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely couldn't point to them on a map. But the whole idea of the Board of Peace was because he was in love with this idea of himself as a peace bringer. But I think he's getting to the point where he's going to have to shed that, because Iran, unquestionably, he started that war and it's still going.
But it is humiliating for him to let go of that legacy that he wanted to build. He wanted to have the Nobel Peace Prize. He had got this Board of Peace, as you say, started the Iran war. Having Israel and Iran, these two situations, unresolved, as he goes into the midterms, I think it's also bad for him. So I don't think he's going to be very happy about
Global politics, a lot more complicated than he perhaps thought. Right, let's talk about a security of a different matter. We're going to talk about food security. Today, the UK equalled the 1995 record for 34 days of temperatures over 30 degrees. Frittenden in Kent recording 30.6 degrees today. The prolonged heat spells combined with a lack of rain having a devastating impact on crops, prompting warnings about potential food shortages later this year. Sky's Ashish Joshi has more from a farm in West Sussex.
Franz de Boer is pretty resilient. Farmers need to be. But a fifth heat wave is unprecedented, and it follows the driest July on record.
I mean, we've had no useful rainfall since the beginning of June, so it's no wonder there's no grass growth at all, and that's really unusual for us. But it's becoming the norm now.
This field should have good grazing grass, but it's scorched. He's not buying any more lambs, as it's expensive to feed them. For us, it could mean less lamb on the market at higher prices.
I mean, this should be about 7 foot tall, should have nice big juicy cobs on it. But as you can see, it's quite dehydrated.
His maize is wilting in the field.
Very low grain count, and the whole thing is starting to dehydrate with lack of water, so it's a real concern.
And it's the same across the sector.
Livestock farmers are struggling. They've got no grass to feed their cows, so they're starting to feed their winter feed, which is not a good time of year to be doing that when they should be grazing the grass. But if you look at the national situation and then the situation across Europe, put that all together and it's a recipe for, again, inflation on food.
Large swathes of the country are already in drought, and it might be the whole country soon, with little rain in sight. The problem is it's not just British farmers who are feeling the impact of this extreme heat. farmers across Europe are feeling the effects of it too. Add to that the uncertainties surrounding the geopolitical picture with the wars that are taking place across the world. It all means that there is just so much uncertainty which will be passed on to consumers, with food insecurity and prices invariably rising. That's something experts say is no doubt coming down the line.
I'm not concerned we'll run out of food anytime soon. What is more concerning is the price of foods. So when we have any kind of climate-related yield shock, or any yield shock per se, then prices usually go up, so food will be more expensive. At the moment, we have fairly high yield shocks, up to even 20%.
Temperatures are rising faster across the European continent than anywhere else in the world. And here in the UK, the next few weeks will continue to be hot and dry, meaning even more uncertainty for Franz and farmers like him. Ashish Joshi, Sky News in West Sussex.
Well, it's alarming for farmers in the UK right now. Price increases, we know, already here. Price of food set to go up. But later this year, food shortages, Cindy, that's how stark a picture it is at the moment for UK farming.
Yeah, and as the academic you had on the programme said, I think, first of all, we'll see the prices rise rather than any shortages per se. But I think as that goes through the supply chain, we will probably see certain items, you know, under kind of short supply, and actually maybe it's possible some vacant supermarket shelves as well, because we know that supermarkets already run on such a tight margin anyway. And I think the thing that this makes me worried about is also with the impact of the Iran war that is going to be feeding through the global energy system as well later this year. That energy is also going to be increasing in cost as well. So what we're going to have in the winter is potentially a really inflationary moment, where the cost of living is going to increase even more. And bringing it back to Andy Burnham and what we were saying earlier about that, a Prime Minister focus on that, I think, would be, focus on the right thing. But as Zoe, you were saying, how much can he really help when these are kind of global, or in this case, weather-related issues?
And we keep hearing how UK farmers need to adapt, need to adapt to climate change, water shortages, geopolitics. But to do that, they need help. And that comes with a government plan for food resilience. And a lot of UK farmers are saying, we need help.
The thing is, I mean, this is actually a really good example of where Andy Burnham needs a coherent political plan, because if people just think things are getting harder and I need the government to kind of patch things together for me, that's not going to bring anybody like any succour or any hope. So it's really screamingly obvious. It just needs a really good plan for renewable energy and a really good plan for building resilience around drought.
Yeah, water infrastructure.
And that's not that hard. It's like nobody doesn't know how to plan for a drought, and nobody doesn't know how to put in a solar farm or a wind farm. So you just need to do it. So I kind of feel it's exactly the same. When the Straits of Hormuz first closed, the academics were saying this could actually be like the little kind of lift we need to get to jet zero, which is just redesigning the aviation industry to run on different fuels, and for the actual planes to be different so that they're lighter. And sometimes you need this kind of shock.
You need to be backed into a corner.
And we do need to be backed into a corner, because we've known about climate change for most of my lifetime now and haven't really done anything. Maybe this is what we need.
I think in the short term, though, there's going to be a lot of pain. And I think for people who are, for example, the farmer that you interviewed, that kind of theoretical shock to the system that will bring change in 5 years' time is not really...
They could be out of business this time next year.
They've known about this for a really long time. Nobody knows better than farmers what the environmental challenges are, because the water shortages have been going for at least 6-7 years. The temperatures might not have been so extreme, but the water shortages have been a feature.
OK, more on that story to come. Coming up next, we're going to take a first look at what's making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Stay with us.
jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. We're going to start with the Metro, which focuses on Andy Burnham's plan to travel across the country to talk to people about their concerns over the cost of living. We'll explain that headline in just a moment. The Telegraph is leading with this headline: Chinese spy cameras found on Navy drones. The Guardian leads with an interview with the new Cabinet Minister in charge of the EU reset talks. Hamish Faulkner says the UK will move faster on achieving closer ties with Europe. The Eye says the UK is bracing for its 5th summer heatwave as 16 million people are set to see their areas move into drought status this week. The Daily Mail's front page is running with the Prime Minister deciding to pursue the controversial Labour plans which let thousands of prisoners out of jail before the end of their sentences. This is, of course, to ease overcrowding in the country's prisons. The Mirror reports on bereaved families, warning of the perils of open water swimming as this 5th heatwave of the year comes to us this week. And The Sun claims in an exclusive that 3 terrorists who plotted to blow up planes with liquid bombs could be released from prison in weeks. The Daily Express has an exclusive with the sister of a student killed by a drunk driver who is demanding Andy Burnham keeps him in jail. And The Star claims an American couple are leaving their home in Texas and moving to Wales after falling for actor Ryan Reynolds' Wrexham Football Club. Well, Zoe and Cindy are going to take a look at some of the papers for tomorrow, the big stories. We're going to start with page 1 of that Metro. And the cost of living tour, Andy Burnham's cost of living tour, is going to start next week. The line they've picked out is Andy wants a cancel culture. And just to explain a little bit about that, he's chosen to focus on closing subscription traps, which I'm sure many of you have fallen into, where you perhaps sign up because you think you need it at the time, you get your first month free, then there's a charge, the charges creep up. Andy Burnham's chosen to focus on this, which...
Well, it's quite an easy... This is what I mean.
Low-hanging fruit?
This is low-hanging fruit. It's quite an easy win. He can say... He's not going to have to legislate this. He's just going to have to say, you know, we strongly disapprove of companies that lock you in for this kind of thing, but it doesn't actually change anything.
Well, I'm not sure that is true. You know, if the number 10 analysis is right, that it could save the average person £170 a year, I think for some people that would change things. You know, it's not, you know, I mean...
Look, I mean, yes, if you're in a situation where you've been gulled into taking out a large number of subscriptions, you're not on top of them, the government can actually come in and alter that for you, and you're going to save 170 quid a year, then yeah, but you could also do that for yourself.
Is it quite good? Because people will go, oh, yeah, he's right, that does annoy me, and actually, I did sign up to that, and it's really tricky to get out of that.
I just
it is something that people can relate to.
But it's not really, though, is it? Because if you were that bothered by it, then you would go through your bank statement and cancel your own subscriptions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting point about whether or not this is really targeting the working classes or actually the middle classes, right? Or you know, the lower middle classes. Yeah. And I think you're right, Zoe, that if you've got enough money to be spaffing it on, you know, Netflix or
and not noticing subscription coming out,
that is true. But I think it is the case that it is an optics thing, and if it is a low-hanging fruit that is cheap to do because it's basically free to just kind of legislate for these things through the Competition and Markets Authority, why not do it? You know, what is the reason not to do it?
Sure. I mean, I just worry. I'm just worried. I'm just a worrier. I just don't
what
think...
Are you worried?
You're just worried he's picking up on the smaller detail and not looking at the bigger picture.
This is detail stuff. He's not picking any enemies. He's not doing any coherent big picture thinking. He's not selling a coherent big picture. He's not bringing the country into a joint project, which is what he had to do, which is what has to do, which is what Keir didn't do. I'm just worried. I'm just a little bit worried that we're seeing a kind of slow motion Starmer problem all over again, where you go for tiny little things and then you get buffeted by large external issues and you don't have the kind of emotional resilience as a project to deal with them.
Well, shall we pick something a little bigger that Andy Burnham is getting his teeth into, or rather his minister in charge of this, Hamish Faulkner, the cabinet minister in charge of the EU reset talks, closer ties, deeper ties, in fact, Cindy, Labour wants.
Yeah, so this is Hamish Faulkner, who, as you say, is the cabinet minister in charge of the EU reset talks. And he's particularly focusing in this interview with The Guardian on services. You know, for example, it could be visa-free travel for British people working in the EU, or he says mutual recognition of qualifications. So if you're, let's say, an accountant in the UK, you can go to the EU and work there more easily. I mean, this kind of stuff seems pretty good on the surface. I think the devil is in the detail. Let's see how it actually works. I think there's also, as ever with EU issues, such a big constituency of the country who are still very allergic to a closer relationship with the EU. So I think politically that could be a tricky one to kind of convince people on. So let's see. But this, you know, all we can see so far from this interview, I think, kind of makes sense. You know, it's not talking about being rule takers.
I think in a subtle way, he's actually... There is something good going on here. I mean, obviously, he's completely hamstrung by the red lines, and he's sort of hamstrung by the fact that, as you say, there's this huge constituency that will just, like, is completely appalled by any idea of a close relationship.
Stop talking about the EU.
And still thinks that, you know, even having kind of harmonisation of regulation around industry is too close to the EU, which to a Remainer's point of view is completely insane because that's the only way to trade with them at all. But to a Brexiter's point of view, they're kind of, you know, we could be on kind of some Singapore on sea if we weren't like this. The thing I think Andy Burnham has really done well is he's managed, because he didn't really do much in the Remain campaign. Nobody's got this kind of instant, oh, he's trying to do rejoin through the back door. He doesn't set off all those tripwires. And because he does have a slightly more courageous orientation towards his opponents, you know? He's not... There's a reason why he's coming out with deeper ties line so soon into the Prime Ministership. And it's because he doesn't really care if people say he's a Remainer in disguise. He's like, you know, suck it up, I'm here to change things. And I think he might get away with more change even than the red lines in the manifesto allow.
Let's move on to the front page of the Daily Mail, because this is quite an arresting headline. Labour jail plan, this is the early release scheme, to spark 89,000, in red, more crimes. The Daily Mail presenting this figure as fact, but I'm not quite seeing where it's come from on this front page. It's quite alarmist, Zoe.
I mean, you know, it says according to analysis, but that, you know, I would want to see some really serious analysis to put that many crimes on a hypothetical behaviour of a hypothetical number of releases across a kind of unknown geographical space. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, what we do know is nobody's happy with this early release scheme.
The thing is with the early release scheme is that it's really, really easy to get a fresh headline out of it every single day, because first you can do these made-up statistics, then you can do the kind of the victims and the victims' families.
Well, that's what the Daily Express have done. They've got, you know, talking about a drunk driver that killed somebody, and they don't want him to be released. Nobody wants a perpetrator who's committed a crime against their family, killed someone, harmed someone, to not serve their full sentence.
And just from a news point of view, it is endlessly possible to get a story out of crime of this nature, because it's always possible to get a human being to talk to you about important emotions, and that's all that you need for a front page. But the truth is, that's what's given us the prison crisis in the first place, is sentences have crept up and up and up and up, because every time a title like the Mail or the Express has made a fuss, the government has caved in some way. And every time you sentence somebody 6 months for what used to be a 3-month crime, you're effectively doubling the number of prisoners in that tariff.
Although there's also obviously the supply side thing of not building the prison spaces.
How much does Andy Burnham need to wrestle the agenda back and stop talking about the early release scheme, but the other side of it, what they're doing to sort of minimise impact and make sure this isn't a thing?
The thing is, crime is very low. Crime is very low in the UK. It's as low as it's ever been at the moment. So we don't have too many prisoners stands for not enough spaces. We have too high sentences driven by tabloid newspapers. That's all that's going on.
I'm not sure, Zoe, you can say that with such
genuinely, Brenda Hale said that to me. Like, the former head of the Supreme Court said that to me.
At the same...
So that is what's going on in prisons. It's not a problem with, like, a crime-ridden nation.
At the same time, though, you know, if we trust our judges, if we trust our judicial system...
unless
you don't...
No, the judges say to politicians, stop putting the tariffs up just in response to the tabloids, because that's what's been going on for 32 years.
I mean, I think the other thing about this number is that I think it's like the £350 million for the NHS kind of thing. The reason for this number is not the actual number. It's to get us to talk about, you know, even 1,000 more crimes is too many. You know, it's not about the 89,000 at all. But as you say, and as you both are saying, any more crime, I think, is really pretty unpalatable. And even the fact of us talking about it, you know, if you're saying, oh, it's actually only going to be 10,000 more crimes, that's not really persuasive.
But you know, anybody, if I was doing a Guardian headline as a direct answer to the Mail, which I know is not what you're supposed to do, I would say how many more crimes are going to be committed if you don't do any rehabilitation in prisons. Because at some point you have to let people out, and if you've done nothing to rehabilitate them, nothing to train them, nothing to kind of control their anger or their mental health concerns, then you're sending out a better criminal. So I would do that research, and that would be much more solid than this.
Right, let's take a break. We're going to have the sport after the break. Derek McInnes, wait for a win. Rangers manager goes on after they are beaten by Hibernian.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK?
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Let's get the latest sports news now from Sky Sports News. Chris is standing by.
Just one big cut. Please do it. Camera sync. Thank you.
An interesting weekend ahead for Dimitar Berbatov. Manchester United reportedly interested.
Nobody's knowing what's going to happen in the future.
Over my dead body, you won't leave Spurs.
You grow impatient. Am I going to miss my moment?
Dimitar's our next target for you, Mr. Levy.
Well, we've made a better one where
Tottenham have reported them to the Premier League for tapping up Dimitar Berbatov.
I didn't feel that we'd done anything that was untoward, really.
Exhausting process. Mentally, it's not good for your mind.
The time is ticking on the final day of this transfer window. Is Dimitar Berbatov going to Manchester United?
Sir Alex is waiting for us. I'm starstruck. Then I find out that City are coming in with the offer.
The noisy neighbours would have been absolutely the noisiest ever.
And I'm like, no, just one club here, we go for United.
Daniel, I think, didn't do himself any favours.
And I took the phone and like, Daniel, please, we had a deal, I'm staying here, bam.
A difficult move is finally only completed just 20 minutes before the deadline.
Oh my God, it's done.
Dimitar Berbatov comes with a hefty price tag, but also an excellent reputation and an impressive scoring record.
What can I say? From year to year, Tottenham got better and better, and I hope when I come here, next year we can play in Champions League.
Let's take you back to your time in Germany. How difficult was that decision to leave there?
I was so used with the city, with the fans, with the people, playing good football, great football. But part of life and development of an athlete is that at one point probably he's going to be thinking, is there more? So the moment I start to think about this was the moment then for me it was clear that at one point maybe I needed to make my next step.
My family was married to German people. I played in Bayern Munich, so I followed all these clubs and I knew that Berbatov was the most talented striker there.
It was rumors here and there. My manager was trying to tell me from time to time. So the moment when my agent came in and said, now we have a very serious interest from Spurs, then I was like, all right. Martinho, the coach, is very good. He said, I know you, you can do well here.
When you are at Spurs and you want a player like Berbatov, is it possible for a club like Spurs to get Berbatov? And he knew that I knew him. I said, you will be a revelation here in this league.
I think over the phone it was maybe a short conversation, trying to tell me that I'm his guy for the number 9. He showed the desire that he wants to have me in Spurs.
If you had a conversation with Daniel Levy,
Let's take a look at the weather picture now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
It's going to turn hotter next week, although it will be cooler tomorrow. Heatwave conditions will return. It is looking quite sunny to start the day, and it will be warm in the south. Dry too, apart from a few showers near northern and northwestern coasts. The morning will stay mainly dry and sunny, but northeastern Scotland will be breezy with further coastal showers. Temperatures will be near average in the north, significantly higher for the south, but it won't be as hot as it has been today.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Tonight on The Wrap, Andy Burnham's cost of living summer tour as he's to set out to ask the public how the government can improve their lives. The Prime Minister has laid out his desire to undo decades of decline on the high street, but are Labour's tax hikes partly to blame? One of the world's most wanted alleged organised crime bosses, Daniel Kinahan, is charged and remanded in custody in Dublin after being extradited from Dubai. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected the Gaza plan from President Trump's Board of Peace, saying his forces won't withdraw until Hamas disarms. As the UK braces for the fifth heatwave of the summer, we report on a potential crisis in global food supplies. And as sport, Arsenal presents their new £75 million signing at the Emirates. Well, we'll be discussing the day's biggest stories with the Guardian columnist Zoe Williams and the Times columnist Cindy Yu. Plus, we'll take a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. That's coming up in half an hour's time. Well, good evening to you and welcome to Zoe and Cindy. And we're going to talk about Andy Burnham and this summer roadshow that he's starting this week. Downing Street saying that the Prime Minister will tour the country to talk to people about their concerns, mainly over the cost of living. Split opinion on this one from both of you, shall we say. Zoe, do you want to start us off? What do you think of the summer roadshow?
I think he's not going to find out anything he doesn't already know. People are going to say, I'm worried about cost of living, I'm worried about public services, I'm worried that my life is harder. And they'll be right, but he could look at the figures and know that.
It's about FaceTime, though, isn't it? Getting out there. I mean, August, you know, everything's a bit mothballed at Westminster, nothing gets done. He needs to make use of the time. He is essentially going to introduce himself to people, do a bit of PR.
I think it's not really fact-finding. It's more about introducing himself. He's not been in national politics for years now. He's a relatively new Prime Minister. Most people who don't follow politics probably can't even pick him out from a lineup. So this is good to introduce himself to the country. It's also good because he's tackling the issues that are going to cut through most of people who don't care about politics. And I think those things were things that Keir Starmer wasn't so good at doing. So Andy Burnham is setting out to do something a bit more different.
Should he be doing something else in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, there's loads that he should be doing. You know, I mean, he's got really, really genuinely serious problems coming down the pipeline, not least the fact that everything's good. He's going to see probably a lot of inflationary pressure in the autumn, a lot of energy inflation, a lot of food inflation. And he's going to have to really sort out not just how to kind of tackle these problems that are really going to hit people, but also how to position himself vis-à-vis Trump, vis-à-vis the EU. He's got a huge amount on his plate that he doesn't need Parliament sitting for, and he really needs this downtime when he's not going to be facing these headwinds of international events, because he's not.
Well, if it really is a nationwide tour, a genuine nationwide tour, he's going to spend a lot of time on that bus, travelling. So
you
on
think
the laptop,
he's gonna be like
on the phone, you know, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he can multitask.
I think it's a little bit childish, right? It feels a little bit medieval king to me. It's like, oh, I'm going to go and see my people, and I'll stay with
an open top bus.
But arguably, he needs that kind of political capital because, like medieval kings, this one hasn't been voted in.
Yeah.
And he needs people to have buy-in. Actually,
I just think it's a little. I think it's a little bit storybook, is what it is, and I don't think it's serious politics.
OK, well, let's see how that one ends. The revival of the High Street is actually one of Andy Burnham's priorities, he says, but if that's going to be achieved, he will have to battle long-term shopping trends and also some of the economic policies of his predecessor. Our correspondent Charlotte Leemings reports now from Wakefield.
Back in the 1980s, Wakefield's High Street was booming, with the opening of the Riding's shopping centre, the Jewel in the Crown. Described as the next Harrods, people flocked here to spend their money. But times have changed. Many shops have now shut or moved out of town. The precinct's been slated for future closure and possible demolition for redevelopment. But new Prime Minister Andy Burnham says he wants to bring back hope to the High Street and tackle the cost of living. Going on tour to meet people and hear their problems. So are they as hopeful as he is?
It's a real struggle. I mean, me and my wife work, and we work 40 hours a week, and you're still struggling to pay your bills then. So, yeah, I think people that are on minimum wage and things are really finding it really difficult.
Put more things on to try and, like, revamp this area a bit and, you know, you put more focus on some of the historic buildings because some area of Wakefield are really nice. We just kind of get drowned out by a lot of the other not-so-nice buildings.
They're on about pulling Ridings down. There's all them shops in there. Where are they going to go? Pulling the flats down at the back of it? No, it's not good enough, is it?
Sofa store manager Mark Watson says high streets up and down the country desperately need support to survive, particularly with the rise in business costs and a reduction in footfall.
Like I say, the high street isn't dead. It just needs sort of rejuvenating, and obviously they're talking about redeveloping the Ridings, perhaps pulling it down. That isn't the answer. For us, we know some of the larger retailers are coming out of the Ridings, which will leave obviously some of your smaller independents sort of in limbo without the attraction of the bigger units to pull people in here. So what's going to happen?
Andy Burnham has said it's his mission to help ease the financial pressure on people. He's already set out measures to cap bus fares and to reduce the cost of energy. But the Conservatives are asking him to explain in detail how he actually plans to fund all of these initiatives.
Lovely to meet you. Nice to meet you.
The PM's heading out for community conversations. But it's his actions, not words, he's going to be judged on. Charlotte Leeming, Sky News, Wakefield.
Well, we've been talking about the decline of the High Street for years now. In fact, the death of the High Street. So many of us who remember, you know, the bustling Saturday afternoon of our High Streets, it's just completely different now. And Cindy, the argument is Is that just a thing of the past? Have things changed now? And if so, what does the new high street look like? And how can Andy Burnham turn it in to a place that thrives?
Yeah, I mean, I think the high street was always going to struggle in the age of internet shopping. You know, it's just so much more convenient when you can buy things at home and then return them from home as well. But at the same time, obviously, government policies have made it worse. You know, things like business rates hikes have made it really impossible for shops. And then, of course, we hear about pubs that are closing down, restaurants that are closing down just because they can't keep up with the costs. I think that if you're not going to go buy things from the high street, then you might actually still spend money on services. You know, so if those high street shop fronts are turned into places that people will go to, third spaces, as it were, maybe that gives it another way to go. But part of this is just the economic stagnation that this country is going under, the inflation as well, that people don't want to spend money anymore. And I think it is very, very hard. And to Zoe's point about the big issues that need to be solved, this is one of them. And it does require more than just a little bus tour here or there. And so very hard to tackle it from just kind of plaster, surface level fixes.
Yeah, so what can he do in this? I mean,
it's really difficult because the pressures on different areas are quite profound. There's when he talks about devolution, I would say that this is one of the hardest things because he's talking about devolving powers down to local areas, but actually the poorer the area, the more profound the challenges and the less money they have to tackle it. So if you go to places like Darlington, you can see some high streets which the only real going concerns are two Greggs that are almost next to each other and some charity shops. Whereas you go to somewhere like, I don't know, Blackheath in London, and they've also got pressures, but their pressures are... The Pilates studio is only open for 6 months and then it closes down again. Now, there's a lot going on there, right? There's a lot in the kind of business rates and should you devolve tax-raising powers more locally and should you just be practising subsidiarity instead of preaching it? And would that kind of, cut taxes to suit the businesses that were near there? But that wouldn't really help you if you're in a very poor area, you needed a lot of tax and you actually couldn't raise it. So there is a lot of space here for centralised decisions around very particular local issues. It's not an issue I would want to be in charge of because it's really, really hard.
Yeah, it's so complicated, isn't it? Changing needs, taxes, different pressures, different geographical needs as to what those communities want. And Zoe made a good point there. You see sort of businesses popping up and then disappearing again. And I've seen that in my local high street. You get very excited that a small independent business has opened up, whether it be a yoga studio, whether it be a cafe, and within 6 months they've closed. And when you talk to a lot of these small business owners, they're saying, we don't get the kind of help. Entrepreneurship, small businesses aren't helped because of the business rates. Like, we're making a good living, but by the time, there's the rise in national insurance and stuff, minimum wage, and then the business rate, we just can't break even, let alone survive. And so the cycle begins again.
Yeah, well, national insurance is a good one to raise because, of course, that was a really politically controversial issue for Rachel Reeves, the former Chancellor, to be doing to hike the employer national insurance. It's just going to hit small, medium-sized businesses much worse than bigger businesses. I guess the one glint of hope, I would like to think, is actually technological advances. For example, AI will make costs lower as well for these small businesses. So if you don't have to pay...
In what way?
So if you're a cafe, for example, you don't have to pay an accountant, but you can do it via AI help. That kind of thing. It could save you a lot of money in the long run if you kind of use that technology to kind of cut out basically things that you pay other people to do when you're already kind of cash-strapped.
Do your own marketing.
Yeah, I think we will see that costs of running business will decrease as a result of technological advances. The question is that enough to offset all these other issues?
And the Prime Minister says he's got his eye on this issue, so let's see what new ideas he comes up with, what, sort of policies he can come up with to help the high street, because it is in decline. But it is just going to look different. It's what that different looks like in the future. We will wait and see. Let's move on to a story that we've been following closely throughout the course of this evening. An alleged gang boss, Daniel Kinahan, is back in Ireland tonight, having been extradited from Dubai. Tonight, the 49-year-old appeared before Dublin's Special Criminal Court and was remanded in custody. He's a former boxing promoter and he's been charged with directing an organised crime group. Our Ireland correspondent Stephen Murphy has this report.
Touchdown for Ireland's most wanted man. A government jet brings the alleged crime boss Daniel Kinahan back to Dublin after his battle against extradition from Dubai failed. It's his first visit home for a decade. In an intense security operation, the 49-year-old was taken to the non-jury special criminal court. In a brief hearing, he was charged with directing the activities of an organised crime group. Kinahan's return being hailed as a significant day for Irish law enforcement.
I want to pay very strong tribute to An Garda Síochána, to the Garda Commissioner, in terms of the Gardaí's success in tackling organised crime in a very effective way. And also I pay tribute to the authorities in the United Arab Emirates for the strong cooperation with Ireland over recent years.
A boxing weigh-in at a Dublin hotel 10 years ago changed everything. A hit squad, some disguised as armed police, attacked the event with assault rifles, hunting for Daniel Kinahan. He escaped, but one of his associates, David Byrne, was shot dead.
It was the worst criminal outrage in criminal history in Ireland. People going around with Kalashnikovs trying to kill rival gang members in the middle of the day and trying to evade justice. That was never seen at that level before.
The hotel attack accelerated a feud with the rival Hutch gang, which left 18 people dead and paralysed parts of inner-city Dublin with fear.
It's very much like out of a horror movie, because it was frightening. There was armed guards on every street corner searching cars, and it was all about who was going to be shot next.
In the aftermath, Kinahan and some of his associates fled abroad, settling in Dubai. Irish police allege that while there, Kinahan continued to direct organised crime. 4 years ago, US authorities travelled to Dublin to offer a $5 million bounty on top Kinahans, including Daniel. They described the gang as one of the most dangerous in the world. Behind the scenes, there was intense work by Irish police and politicians securing a new extradition deal with the UAE. Kinahan's days in the Gulf were now numbered. Daniel Kinahan has now been remanded in custody, thought to be at Ireland's only maximum security prison in Portlaoise. He knows his legal battle will be tough. "I think we know I won't get bail, but thanks for explaining," he told the court. Stephen Murphy, Sky News in Dublin.
Now, just over a week ago, President Trump hailed an apparent breakthrough in the move towards a long-term settlement to rebuild Gaza, involving a commitment from Hamas to disarm. Well, those hopes are now in tatters. This is after Israel's Prime Minister rejected the US President's 15-point plan for Gaza, stating that no military withdrawal will occur until Hamas is genuinely disarmed. Benjamin Netanyahu has declared Israel will stand its ground on this issue, even against its closest friends.
Now we are talking with the Americans about this issue. They have ideas, some of which are acceptable to us, and some are not. We know how to stand up to these things. We have proven it in the past, and we are proving it today as well.
Well, Cindy, here we are again. We seem to go through this cycle, don't we? And various sticking points. And you know, this is the point Israel are at tonight.
Yeah, it's pretty absolutist from Netanyahu, though. What he's saying there is that Hamas has to totally disarm before the IDF withdraws any forces. Now, the withdrawal of the IDF and disarmament of Hamas is already both in that peace plan, but Netanyahu is saying that there has to be a sequence, that Hamas has to do it first. And obviously, just the pledge of doing it is then not enough for him. So that is very difficult, and he's going to ask all sorts of kind of verifying factors, right? Like, how do we believe you when you're saying you've disarmed already?
He's setting impossible terms.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the other thing in that clip that he goes on to say, which I thought was so absolutist, was saying, as long as I am PM, as long as I am Prime Minister, a Palestinian state will not be established either in Gaza or in Judea and Samaria, which is the biblical name for the West Bank. So he's basically totally ruling out Palestinian statehood under his watch.
That's interesting, isn't it, Zoe? As long as I am Prime Minister, and we know that Israel is coming up to elections.
I mean, it makes you wonder who he's tilting at in terms of his own electorate, because to say there will be no Palestinian statehood in either Gaza or the West Bank, what does he... Is he asking us to imagine a state of complete obliteration? I mean, is that... Because if that's what he's doing, then he's trying to gate off the threat from the far right on his own electoral territory. But I mean, I just don't see how that. I don't see how that works. I don't see how that works on humanitarian grounds. I don't see how that works in terms of the international community. I don't see how Israel then exists in its relationships with other nations. I don't see how you obliterate a people and continue to treat with normal countries. I just don't see how it works.
Well, that is then that conundrum that you've created there. That is then put at the feet of Donald Trump again, doesn't it? Because it goes back. And what happens now, effectively? Because Benjamin Netanyahu is saying, we're not afraid to go against our closest friends in this, which obviously we all know what that means. We don't need to read between the lines on that one. And you do wonder if President Trump can figure that out.
I mean, it's remarkable, I think, the amount of patience that Donald Trump has had with Netanyahu's antics, both in terms of the Gaza situation and in terms of getting him into this Iran war.
Do you think, is that what you... I mean...
Is it patience or not knowing what to do?
But it was very weird, the kind of suddenness and the apparent lack of strategy with Iran. But do you think he was sort of tricked into it by Netanyahu?
Well, I'm not sure he was... Well, tricked is maybe a bit of a loaded term, but in the New York Times did do a very good kind of blow-by-blow of how did that even happen. And Netanyahu was literally in the Pentagon room briefing the American side, saying, it's as easy as this, giving a PowerPoint presentation, they could be taken out within days, all this sort of stuff.
Did he mention the Straits of Hormuz? Or
right, yeah, probably not, right? So, but then people who were sceptical of the war, for example, J.D. Vance in the US administration were not in that room. So tricked, I mean, he definitely sang to an audience that was eager to believe or did not have knowledge enough to counter. But now, anyway, so going back to the point, I do think, Trump has displayed a remarkable tolerance for Netanyahu dictating his American foreign policy. And this is just the latest way in which Netanyahu is kind of just slapping Trump's face. And he could just continue allowing this to happen. But this is the American president that's been causing trouble in the rest of the world, right? Tariffs on the rest of the world, falling out with his European allies. But when it comes to Netanyahu, he is so remarkably
tolerance or too closely tied.
I don't think it is tolerance, because Trump is just not known for that kind of emotional restraint, and he's not known to he's not known for caution. He's just not known for it. I think it probably is that he's too closely tied, and he's actually, he's got American politics into the position where all of the Republican Party and a good part of the Democratic Party are completely allied to Israel in a way that they cannot resile from, because then they'd have to, it's become extremely polarised. And if you even step 5 degrees away and say, actually, I have reservations about how Netanyahu has acted against Gaza, against Lebanon, then you have to, deal seriously in what's happened. Whereas a lot of American politics is just not dealing with what's happened. They're just not dealing with the number of people who have died. They're not dealing with the IDS responsibilities in that. They're just not dealing with it. It's a kind of... So it's very hard with a kind of politics that's in denial to then move to a different phase. And I can see that Trump is almost as trapped in this phase as everybody else is.
And the peace plan goes back to square one. OK, right, coming up next, we're going to hear from farmers in West Sussex, worried about the impact of rising temperatures. Stay with us for a special report.
This is how you travel when the mafia wants to kill you.
He's almost given up his own freedom, but that's the price he's willing to pay.
Here, they don't just arrest and Ndrangheta mafia members, they also live among them.
Time after time, I've seen the devastating impact of extreme weather and climate change.
We don't have much snow at the moment.
They've had a warm spring and exceptionally hot summer, and that means they're expecting to lose more than 3 times the amount of ice than they usually do.
Flames are still forcing people from their homes and leaving many questioning their futures.
Here was my life. We have nothing. I can't say anything, it's so sad.
This disaster is testing the resolve of everyone on this island. The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out.
The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here.
In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Now, the UK has passed the 1995 record of 34 days of temperatures over 30 degrees, with Frittenden in Kent recording 33.1 degrees Celsius today. The prolonged heat spells are having a devastating impact on farmers, prompting warnings about potential food shortages later this year. Sky's Ashish Joshi sent us this report from a farm in West Sussex.
Franz de Boer is pretty resilient. Farmers need to be. But a fifth heat wave is unprecedented, and it follows the driest July on record.
I mean, we've had no useful rainfall since the beginning of June, so it's no wonder there's no grass growth at all, and that's really unusual for us. But it's becoming the norm now.
This field should have good grazing grass, but it's scorched. He's not buying any more lambs, as it's expensive to feed them. For us, it could mean less lamb on the market at higher prices.
I mean, this should be about 7 foot tall, should have nice big juicy cobs on it, but as you can see, it's quite dehydrated.
His maize is wilting in the field.
It's very low grain count, and, you know, the whole thing is starting to dehydrate with lack of water, so it's a real concern.
And it's the same across the sector.
Livestock farmers are struggling. They've got no grass to feed their cows, so they're starting to feed their winter feed, which is not a good time of year to be doing that when they should be grazing the grass. But if you look at the national situation and then the situation across Europe, put that all together, and it's a recipe for, again, inflation on food.
Large swathes of the country are already in drought, and it might be the whole country soon, with little rain in sight.
The problem is, it's not just British farmers who are feeling the impact of this extreme heat. Farmers across Europe are feeling the effects of it too. Add to that the uncertainties surrounding the geopolitical picture with the wars that are taking place across the world. It all means that there is just so much uncertainty which will be passed on to consumers, with food insecurity and prices invariably rising.
That's something experts say is no doubt coming down the line.
I'm not concerned we'll run out of food anytime soon. What is more concerning is the price of foods. So when we have any kind of climate-related yield shock, or any yield shock per se, then prices usually go up, so food will be more expensive. At the moment, we have fairly high yield shocks, up to even 20%.
Temperatures are rising faster across the European continent than anywhere else in the world. And here in the UK, the next few weeks will continue to be hot and dry, meaning even more uncertainty for Franz and farmers like him. Ashish Joshi, Sky News in West Sussex.
Well, Cindy and Zoe, food security, I mean, that's high up on the agenda at the moment in terms of the climate, the lack of water, the drought situation and geopolitics. It's a really heady mixture at the moment, Zoe. But this is an issue that has been coming down the road for quite some time. Farmers aren't just talking about that this year.
No, farmers have been talking about needing support to build resilience and to build resilience, particularly in the face of heat and drought for some time. They were slightly hobbled. I don't want to go on about it. But they were slightly hobbled by Brexit because there used to be a lot of pan-European thinking about how to build a kind of the next generation of farming, and we're no longer part of that. There used to be a lot of subsidies they got from the EU, which they no longer get. Those haven't been matched by British-only subsidies. So, you know, things have slipped off the agenda in terms of forward planning because nobody was forward planning from basically 2016 onwards.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, you know, but it is true. I don't think this is, I mean, you had that academic on in the package. The first problem you hit is always higher prices before you get empty shelves. Yeah. And that is going to be really killing to people.
Heat and drought cost UK arable businesses £800 million last year, Cindy.
I mean, we are just in a changing climate, aren't we? And I think that as much as you might hope that we're just going to kind of go back to the climate of 10, 15, 20 years ago, actually the data shows that consistently it has been getting hotter and drier in the UK, which is good for certain crops. You know, I was at a vineyard in Sussex the other day, you know, doing English sparkling wine, and that's the kind of grape that can now grow. So we might be thinking about, you know, what the face of our kind of agriculture looks like. But certainly, you know, in terms of what it has been so far, what farmers have been used to, it's going to have to change, because I don't think this is the last year we're going to have heat waves. You know, I think nobody would be surprised if in the next few years we have more and more weather like this. And also just extreme weather, because bear in mind, actually, earlier this year, it was very cold and wet for a long time as well, and that's not good for farmers either.
That's the thing, it's lurching from one extreme to the other.
And I didn't realise about vineyards in France that the actual, historically, you're never meant to water them. They're meant to sustain through everything on their own toughness.
Yeah.
And then if you get a particularly dry year, you have a particular taste of the wine. And kind of things like that, where you're used to doing things a certain traditional way, and the weather is basically defying your traditions. That's probably going on in every single crop kind of calculation everywhere in Europe. But farmers need help to adapt. It's not that they can't adapt. Of course they can adapt, but they just need somebody to be thinking seriously about it, rather than, you know, looking at parliamentary debates in which they're having these kind of asinine clashes about net zero and whether it's costing the taxpayer too much money. There is no such thing as too much money if you can't grow crops in your new climate. You know, you have to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, it is farmers adapting, but they do need help to do that. I mean, the farm that Ashish Joshi visited in West Sussex, I mean, just picking up those ears of corn. I mean, and everywhere is yellow. Everywhere is yellow. There's not any green to be seen. And, you know, I live in Kent on the East Sussex border. As you drive along, that is a familiar scene. And it is devastating for farmers. And many of these farms, if they don't get help, they're doing all they can, will simply go out of business, Cindy.
Yeah. But it just goes back to the problem that we have in this country, which is the fiscal situation, right? It's just so incredibly tight. You know, if that support comes in the form of, let's say, matching those lost European subsidies, where's that money going to come from? If that support comes in the form of cutting taxes, where's that money going to come from? So all of that are difficult, and you would think that Andy Burnham would make some kind of contribution to what he thinks should be done on that later this year, especially as we go into the budget.
Food resilience plan.
I'm sure there are plenty of food resilience plans in Whitehall. The question is, when are they ever implemented? And because nobody, I'm sure the civil servants have got numerous reports on this already. And one thing that does come to mind is something like the inheritance tax for farmers, for example, you know, which was so politically toxic for the Keir Starmer government, and they had to, you know, raise that threshold to £5 million instead of £1 million. Stuff like that makes a difficult situation in the farming industry even worse.
Do we need to hear the Prime Minister talking more about this?
I mean, he's going to...
He's got a lot to talk about, hasn't he?
He has got a lot to talk about. And my hope
tackle.
is that one of the ways in which he'll excel Keir Starmer is that he manages to kind of get some kind of grid together where he's not just waking up on the kind of 5th day of the 5th heat wave and going, OK, today I'm going to make a speech about the weather. It's like, I would hope that he's got a plan to at least address it.
Well, because a lot of the criticism has been that he... You know, his background as Mayor of Greater Manchester, he's focused a lot on cities. It's the rural areas who are saying, you know, where's the plan for us? We haven't yet.
I mean, I wouldn't judge him harshly on that, because the thing is, his kind of essential plan is, I'm going to be more responsive to the different needs of different areas, and that can work just as well to rural areas as to urban ones. And it's good to hear. It's good to hear that he's thinking in terms of a big picture. But you know, I just really hope that he's not going to be one of those people who waits until food prices are going up by 12% a month before he says something.
Well, we don't know his exact bus route on this nationwide tour he's going on. He might be coming to a farm near you, Andy Burnham, on his nationwide tour, talking to people about their lives and figuring out what they need. Right, let's have a look at what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. We're going to start with the Financial Times. The FT reporting on Israel rejecting a plan for Gaza that Donald Trump had claimed was a major breakthrough. The Metro focusing on Andy Burnham's plans to travel the country to talk to people about their concerns. The Times reports that Burnham is struggling to convince one of his closest allies to join his government over concerns about potential wealth taxes. The Telegraph leading with the headline, Chinese spy cameras found on Navy drones. The Guardian features an interview with a new cabinet minister in charge of the EU reset talks. Hamish Faulkner says the UK will move faster on achieving closer ties with Europe. The Eye says the UK is bracing for its 5th summer heatwave, as 16 million people are set to see their areas move into drought status this week. The Daily Mail claims the Prime Minister is pursuing the controversial Labour plans that will let thousands out of jail before the end of their sentences to ease overcrowding in prisons. The Mirror reports on bereaved families warning of the perils of open water swimming as this 5th heatwave heads our way. The Sun claims in an exclusive that 3 terrorists who plotted to blow up planes with liquid bombs could be released from prison in weeks. And the Daily Express has an exclusive with the sister of a student killed by a drunk driver who is demanding the Prime Minister keeps him in jail. And the Star interviews an American couple who say they are leaving their home in Texas and moving to Wales after falling for Ryan Reynolds' Wrexham Football Club. Right, let's have a look at some of those stories in a bit more detail, shall we? Let's pick up on the bus tour, because that is the one that's generating a lot of coverage in tomorrow's newspapers. The listening tour, the Eye newspaper inside, it's on page 6. Burnham's cost of living tour will listen to what people say. And it's fair to say you've got very different opinions on this. You're all aboard. You're not waving it down, Zoe.
I'm aboard for him to try. No, I think there's no harm in trying at the moment, because he is a new Prime Minister. He needs to introduce himself out there. Political capital is a massive part of politics, and just putting himself out there. And I think he's targeting cheap things that have cut through to ordinary people. And I think that's actually quite a good thing to do at the beginning, at this current stage.
And it's got a consumer focus,
well,
shall
exactly.
we say, this bus tour.
But, you know, I mean, my worry about it is that you appeal to people as consumers, right? It's like you kind of appeal to the beating heart of the person as a person who has to buy eggs or has to buy whatever, milk. And that is not who people are politically. That's not, you know, that does not assure you loyalty or a political project or buy-in. All that assures you is that is the support of people while your shopping list of policies is working. So, you know, you could guarantee people that you would cut their subscriptions bill, but if there's an energy price hike, which there's going to be, All they feel is what their bank statement looks like in 3 months' time. And if you've sold yourself as the government that's going to fix their bank statements, then you're a government that's failed. I think you have to just describe politics in a more coherent way, in a more empowering way. Like, if we do this thing, then everybody's life is going to improve, rather than if I step in like Which magazine and solve this problem, then you'll have 170 pounds.
It's interesting,
more
isn't
in
it?
your
Because
bank
he's talking about accelerating plans to tackle subscription traps and crack down on rip-off discounts on this cost of living tour. £400 million, that's the amount consumers are expected to save after a clampdown on free trials. After seeing that figure, actually, you know, it's hard to be a bit sniffy about it, isn't it? £400 million.
I mean, look, OK, it's fine, but this is a... It's fine. It's really bad. If corporations are scamming people for £400 million, then that is bad. No, you're not going to get any argument over that. But it's
essentially
not...
something we could be doing ourselves.
It's something you could be doing yourself.
It is so hard to do. It is really hard to get out of some subscriptions.
Well, listen, if you want to save money, it's not that hard to do. Right. Let's talk about the Mail, page 1. This is actually quite an alarming headline. There is a lot of concern, isn't there, Cindy, about this early release scheme for prisoners. If you have been a victim of crime, no matter what crime, you want your perpetrator to serve the sentence handed down by a judge. The Daily Mail really sort of playing on those insecurities that victims of crime are feeling by saying that this plan will spark 89,000 more crimes. How are they backing that figure up?
Well, it says on the front, the Conservatives have found that, so a very independent source.
Yeah, that famous research organisation.
Well, but to be fair, they might have got some research, some think tank attached. We haven't seen it in
We are operating only on the front page.
Yes, exactly. But the
out.
numbers break down to 500 added sex offences, nearly 1,800 violent crimes and just under 36,000 thefts. I think the point of this kind of article, though, is not that anyone's saying, you know, the number's inaccurate. You know, it's actually only going to be 10,000 extra crimes, because that's not good enough. People are thinking, you know, even 10,000 more is not good enough. And this is such a tricky issue for successive governments, because bear in mind, actually, when the Conservative Party was, the Conservative government was leaving government, they had this issue already starting to bubble up. And Shabana Mahmood, as the former Justice Secretary, really had to tackle this as one of her first issues. So I think it has the potential to become really, really big, because it is such a long, you know, it's such a long-term issue. It's very hard to build more prison spaces very quickly.
And it's happening already, this early release scheme. It is happening already. And, you know, something that's ignited it this time particularly is two of those responsible for the killing of PC Harper are potentially going to get out in a couple of months' time. There is a petition, 866,000 signatures at this point in time. But the Times, on their front page, saying, look, actually, the Prime Minister can't block their release. He can't please everyone.
The thing is that as if you looked at the response that the potential release of PC Harper's killers got, exactly as you say, there's nearly 1 million signatures on a petition. What it does is it shows to a certain element of the media that they can get, like, it's really easy to just get a lot of attention, get a family member of a victim of a crime. You've got the sister of a student who was tragically killed by a drunk driver.
On the front page of the Express.
On the front of the Express. Nobody thinks that... Nobody would want to be in that position. Everybody's heart goes out to her, but nobody thinks that drunk drivers are the most dangerous people in society. Nobody thinks that that's the most important person to keep in prison. Nobody thinks that drunk driver is going to come out of prison and immediately get drunk and kill somebody else. That's just not the truth of crime, but it's such an easy emotional win to cover it in that way that you find governments just reacting to a completely pantomime version of the situation they're dealing with. And, you know, the Daily Mail can say 89,000 extra crimes going to be committed. The Guardian could run a front page the next day saying this is how many crimes are going to be committed by people who weren't rehabilitated while they were in prison because conditions in prison were so harsh and so overcrowded. It's really easy to do that kind of journalism, but I just don't think it's very honest journalism.
OK, we're going to take a quick break. Coming up after that, we'll take a look at some more of the stories making the front pages of tomorrow's newspaper. Stay with us.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Cindy and Zoe with me, taking a look through tomorrow's newspapers, picking out some of the big stories. And Cindy, you've gone for the Telegraph, their front page. Chinese spy cameras found on Navy drones.
Yeah, so this is somewhat of a concerning story, which is that the scout surveillance drones that the Royal Marines have been using had components that came from China. And what they have found actually is recently that the drones themselves were sending so-called heartbeat communications to a server, to an IP address in China. Basically, the kit saying, I'm still working, I'm still working, I'm still active kind of thing. But they are worried that actually what else could be transmitted. And the most concerning thing to me about this story is that actually they didn't know about this before they started using it. And now that they have discovered it, they've actually taken the drones offline, so disconnected it from the internet. So clearly it wasn't, within the range of risk assessment. And so it just kind of really raises the question of how much due diligence are you doing about component parts of the equipment that you're buying, even if nothing sensitive in this case was leaked.
Well, the MOD has released a statement tonight saying no sensitive data has been compromised, saying a thorough investigation found no evidence of MOD data or systems being accessed, compromised or transmitted externally. They say we continue to undertake routine security activity across our systems and equipment. Times page 2, Zoe, Britain's attitude to migrants have hardened over the last decade.
Yeah, so it's the figures are quite stark. It's 43% of Britons now think that migration has been mostly bad for the UK, which is up significantly in the past 10 years since 2016. I would argue that basically the thing with immigration is that you can have sensible, humane, open-minded conversations about immigration, but not when it is top of everybody's agenda for making political capital out of, because the only way to make political capital out of it is to say you're going to bring it down. Nobody's ever made political capital out of saying they're going to get immigration up. I think the only time that ever happened was Tony Blair said, I think it's a sign of a successful country when more people want to come to it than leave. And then he immediately kind of went back on that and made it impossible for asylum seekers to work until their claim had been processed. So basically what we're seeing is a change in national attitudes as a direct result of politicians and the media and, frankly, the interests of capital setting up a kind of hegemonic capture against immigration on things like GB News, which talks about nothing else, to create the impression that our country is somehow worse thanks to people who've come here and done amazing jobs throughout every sector. It's a crying shame. It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
And I look forward to a better conversation anytime anybody wants to start one.
Well, look, talking about political conversation, an interesting take from Kosovan MPs. This is the Metro, settling a debate by literally not hurling insults, but hurling eggs at each other. Cindy.
Yeah, these are some amazing pictures for viewers at home. That blonde representative is really going at it.
I really want to see the video, don't you?
and they're annoyed because the acting Prime Minister said that he needed more time to propose a candidate for Speaker, so clearly he's got people very riled up. The thing that, I'm confused about this story is that they must have brought the eggs in beforehand. Yeah. Because why would you have an egg on you other than premeditated egging? So that morning they woke up and maybe on a WhatsApp group said, let's all bring eggs in because he's going to say something we don't like and we're going to attack him for it. The acting Prime Minister has been pretty good sport about it. He says he's happy to pay this price if it was the cost of dialogue.
I do like the final line in this article. Let's hope for his sake he hatches a plan soon. Cindy, Zoe Williams, really good to have your company tonight in the wrap. Thank you so much for taking us through some of the main stories of the day and the big stories that will be making the headlines tomorrow. Coming up, it's the sport. Derek McInnes wait for a win as Rangers manager goes on after they are beaten by Hibs.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's rang out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against, that the wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Let's get the latest now from Sky Sports News.
Just one big cut, please do it. Everything, thank you.
An interesting weekend ahead for Dimitar Berbatov. Manchester United reportedly interested.
Nobody's knowing what's going to happen in the future.
Over my dead body, you won't leave Spurs.
You grow impatient. Am I going to miss my moment?
Dimitar's our next target for you, Mr. Levy.
Well, made a better one, Poyar.
Tottenham have reported them to the Premier League for tapping up Dimitar Berbatov.
I didn't feel that we'd done anything that was untoward, really.
Exhausting process. Mentally, it's not good for your mind.
The time is ticking on the final day of this transfer window. Is Dimitar Berbatov going to Manchester United?
Sir Alex is waiting for us. I'm starstruck. Then I find out that City are coming in with the offer.
The noisy neighbours would have been absolutely the noisiest ever.
And I'm like, no, just one club here, we go for United.
Daniel, I think, didn't do himself any favours.
And I took the phone and like, Daniel, please, we had a deal, I'm staying here, bam.
A difficult move is finally only completed just 20 minutes before the deadline.
Oh my God, it's done.
Dimitar Berbatov comes with a hefty price tag, but also an excellent reputation and an impressive scoring record.
What can I say? From year to year, Tottenham got better and better, and I hope when I come here, next year we can play in Champions League.
Let's take you back to your time in Germany. How difficult was that decision to leave there?
I was so used with the city, with the fans, with the people, playing good football, great football. But part of life and development of an athlete is that at one point probably he's going to be thinking, is there more? So the moment I start to think about this was the moment then for me it was clear that at one point maybe I needed to make my next step.
My family was married to German people. I played in Bayern Munich, so I followed all these clubs, and I knew that Berbatov was the most talented striker there.
It was rumors here and there. My manager was trying to tell me from time to time. So the moment when my agent came in and said, now we have a very serious interest from Spurs, then I was like, all right. Martinho, the coach, is very good. He said, I know you, you can do well here.
When you are at Spurs and you want a player like Berbatov, is it possible for a club like Spurs to get Berbatov? And he knew that I knew him. I said, you will be a revelation here in this league.
I think over the phone it was maybe a short conversation, trying to tell me that I'm his guy for the number 9. He showed the desire that he wants to have me in Spurs.
If you had a conversation with Daniel Levy 1 hour before he spoke to me, he wouldn't have promised him the world. He needed to be convinced.
Meeting Martinho for the first time, that was also
A quick look at the weather now.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
It's going to turn hotter next week, although tomorrow will be cooler. Heat wave conditions will return, though. It's looking quite sunny to start the day, warm for the south, dry as well, apart from a few showers near northern and northwestern coasts. The morning will stay mainly dry and sunny, but northeastern Scotland will be breezy with coastal showers. Temperatures will be near average in the north.